Today I want to share with you 4 ways to keep students' attention during your sermon. And this is so important because you spend time researching, writing, planning, preparing a sermon. Maybe you don't call it that, maybe you just call it a message or whatever you call it. You know what I'm talking about. You prepare this thing, you spend some time doing it, and then all of a sudden you're delivering it and you're frustrated because students aren't tracking with you. They're not paying attention. And part of it is just their short attention spans, but that's not all of it. Researchers who know about attention spans really say that a student's attention span should be about 2 minutes per year of age. So if it's a 14-year-old student, the attention span ought to be hovering upwards around 28 minutes or so. But that's only when they're actively, intentionally tracking with you. So you need a couple of strategies to help them do that. So the first strategy is to tell them a story. There's something about stories that just kind of draws us in and that makes us curious about where it's going to go. And so I actually wrote a book called Sermon Starters for Student Ministry with 25 different stories that I've used very successfully through the years in different student ministry settings. And even though I talk about using stories at the front end of the sermon to kind of draw students in, any one of those stories could be used in a different spot in the sermon or in the message to keep their attention. Next thing you can do is to get them to say something. So this might be if you've got a phrase that you want them to repeat or a word or a phrase that you've introduced during your message, you just say, okay, everybody say that together. And then they say it. It's just a way to get them to vocalize something. Or you say, share this with your neighbor. Share this with the person next to you. Again, all you're trying to do is just interrupt the pattern of them sitting there listening, and you're trying to get them to actively engage with what you've got. Then you could get them to do something. Ask them to respond in some way. Raise a hand if this is true of you. Get up and move to this side of the room if this is true of you. Get up and switch places with somebody who who's had the opposite experience of you. You're just trying to get them to stand up or somehow or another physically participate in what you've got going on. That is a great way to reboot their attention. Or you can call up a volunteer to participate and join with you on stage to kind of act something out. Just get them to do something. That's always a great way. A fourth way is to get them to look at something. So a prop is a great way to make this happen. A couple of fun props that I've used. One time I was talking about the power of words and how sometimes our words can tear things apart or smash things. So I bought this little wooden birdhouse from Home Depot and a hammer. And I had this birdhouse sitting there, and right about the time that I really felt like, I might have been losing them or I really wanted to drive home the point, I took that hammer and just started smashing the birdhouse, and little wood chips are flying everywhere. That got their attention, and it kept their attention at a very key point in that message. Another time I brought a toilet on stage, and it was just sitting there, and everybody's thinking, what is that toilet for? It's so weird. And at just the right moment, I introduced this idea of flushing negative thoughts. So that's why the toilet was there. So a prop is always good for this. You can mix in like a video clip at just the right time. Another thing that you can do is just have different images on the screen that are always kind of shifting, and you're always changing the images to update what the students are seeing visually. So a couple of ways that you can keep their attention: tell them a story, get them to say something, get them to do something, get them to look at something. Pattern interruption is the key for keeping their attention. Now, if you are interested in these kinds of topics, this is just one of the topics that I cover in my coaching program, this topic of preaching. There's 8 other ones. Now, if you're interested in getting help with your ministry, I'd love for you to join me in my coaching program. You can find out more at betteryouthministry.com/coaching.